Hi guys, this is Kalki Kekla and you're watching the YouTube version of My Indian Life, a podcast brought to you by the BBC World Service. You can comment on this episode below, or you can just watch, or you can just listen. Sonagachi, a warren of narrow streets and winding lanes in central Kolkata, home to at least 11,000 sex workers, Asia's largest red light district. And this is Leena, who grew up living right next door.
So all these houses here, which you can already see on the side street, that's all Sonagachi. And these houses with saris flying, that's all Sonagachi. And at night you come and there you can see actually purple lights and red lights and in the buildings. And we were always told, yahan mat jao. Don't go at the back, don't look at the back. Like it was a big taboo, so there was an underlying thing that you are not supposed to look there.
But in this episode, we are going to look there, however dark what we find may turn out to be. This is My Indian Life from the BBC World Service, your podcast about being young and Indian in the 21st century. I'm Kalki Kekla, and this is episode 8. The biggest brothel in Asia. This story is brought to us by our producer Ishleen Kaur. Ishleen, tell us about it.
Hi Kalki. Hi everyone. So, Kalki, when we were researching about stories we might cover in the series, I just kept finding myself drawn to this one.
This weird, scary, famous place in Kolkata.
That's right. And I found Leena, and I knew that I had to talk to her for the podcast, since she was born and raised in Kolkata, and she grew up right next to Sonagachi. Her curiosity and fascination with this neighborhood really shaped her life as an adult. And in turn, today she's trying to change the lives of women caught up in the sex industry.
And you went to see her in Kolkata?
I did. And let me tell you, it was a real eye-opener. At first glance, Sonagachi feels like any other busy marketplace. People are talking, doing business, buying pakoras from roadside tea stalls. Groups of men sit around playing cards. And then you start to tune into the conversations and hear exactly what it is that people are selling. I pass a woman talking to a man, a customer. This is Sonagachi, she says. Just 500 rupees. Come to the room. I'll give you a great girl. And if you like it, come again. The streets here are lined with a few colorful bungalows, jammed in between tiny single-room cubicles, barely big enough for a bed. Look through their doorways and you see women fixing their makeup, brushing their hair, some in traditional dresses and a few trying to hide their faces. As I walk down the street with my microphone, some men look at me suspiciously, others don't seem bothered at all. Sonagachi, the whole neighborhood, is in effect one huge brothel. And for me, it felt surreal and a little uncomfortable to be there. But for the person I was going to meet, Leena Kejriwal, a photographer, artist, a mother and a campaigner, Sonagachi is home.
So though I was here, we were of course never told what were we at. And at some moment of time when we used to see some figures and girls standing on the road outside, we were always told that you're not supposed to look there. So you always wondered what was it I was not supposed to look at, and very, very curious about what's going on behind the house. But there were many anecdotes and things, like little girls are caught and kept here. And this is told to another little girl. So I think these were feelings which just didn't leave me, what probably these girls could have felt.
But this isn't just an urban myth. Some girls are trapped in Sonagachi. And as she got older, Leena began to realize what a dangerous place it could be for a young woman.
One evening, I'm in high school and I'm studying. It's 2 o'clock at night. And I just hear this blood-curdling scream. I was 17 and I was alone. I didn't know what to do. There's nothing I could do because I'm here and I heard somebody probably scream in that whole maze of buildings, no clue about where that scream came from. And it was shut within a second. Like the scream came for approximately, I would say, 2 or 3 seconds. Really loud and really heart-wrenching. And then you could make out it was clamp. I think these are stuff which, just make you so sensitive to this issue. I still think about it and I can go.
Well, that was Ishleen reporting from Sonagachi. And now she's back here with me in the My Indian Life studio, along with Leena, who we met in that report. Hi, Leena.
Hi, Kalki.
Great to meet you, Leena. Before we go into the details of Sonagachi, can you tell us about your campaign and what you're trying to do?
Okay, so starts with me being a photographer as a creative person and kind of trying to understand spaces within a city. And one such visit takes me into a red light. And it's an experience which doesn't leave me. And I realized I'm really sensitive to the plight of the young girl standing there. And I more than ever wanted to talk about that in my artwork. So from a photographer, I went on to be an installation artist and then a public artist because I wanted to talk to the public. That set me out to actually create an artwork which transcended language barriers, which would catch their attention, generate curiosity, empathy, and all for the young girl. So I created this silhouette of this girl, which came out from one of my portraits of the young girls I was mentoring in a red light in the city. And it turned out to be a very powerful piece of work, which I titled Missing.
And why the name Missing?
Well, missing because when I was delving into the whole topic and I realized the horrific stats of trafficking in India, how 16 million were being trafficked and how 51% of them were young girls, and how the age of a girl getting trafficked was dropping from 14, 13, 11, 9, and that the 7-year-olds are fetching the highest prices in the dark web of trafficking. That's when I realized that way back in 1990, Amartya Sen had first spoken about India's missing. And that title was something which struck me. And I just realized that Missing would be an appropriate title for the project.
Leena, tell me, what is it that you're trying to do with Missing?
What I really wanted to do, because I had spent many years in the red light with my friends working there. And I saw that they were having such a tough time keeping second-generation prostitution out, let alone the first, because every day there was a new girl standing there. And that only happens because of the demand which the public makes and people who are willing to buy her. So I wanted to create a dent in that demand. I wanted to create a mass awareness amongst the population to say, hey, don't you want to know where she's coming from? Who is she? Do you really think she wants standing there of her own will? So Missing primarily wants to make you think about these young girls who are going missing into the dark world of trafficking.
Ishleen, you met a few women and kids at Sonagachi.
That's right. And it's really shocking when you walk around the streets of Sonagachi. You see just as many children as you do adults. And these are the children of the sex workers, born and raised in the brothel. Many are not going to school. But Leena took me to visit a charity called Hamari Muskan, which is trying to bring a degree of structure to their lives. They get a basic education and therapy too, to help them through what is a very traumatic life. And, as I saw, they learn karate too. Paromita is a child psychologist who works for Hamari Muskan, and she told me about the work they're doing.
It's very important for us to provide a safe space to all the children. We want to stop second-generation prostitution. We work with the community gradually to bring about the social change because it has been a generational thing and we cannot eradicate it in a few years. But what's very important for us that the children that we are working with, we want them to have a safe, dignified life.
Paromita introduces me to some of the children. They're all between 11 to 16 years old. Many of them tell me they don't feel safe. A young girl tells me she avoids going out because she gets nasty comments. Another one tells me she feels nervous every time she steps out in Sonagachi. And a 15-year-old girl wearing a plain kurta neatly braided hair, she tells me she wants to bring change to Sonagachi. She says she knows many girls her age who've become sex workers, but they have bigger dreams. And she tells me her dream is to be an advocate for young girls in her neighborhood, so they don't have to enter this profession. Many children live in a single-room home, the same room where their mothers have sex with the customers, often in front of their children. They witness violence, and many children say they go to bed at night not feeling safe. They don't have a childhood, Paromita says.
When a child grows up in a red light area, they are exposed to a lot of experiences which are adult experiences. They see a lot of things, they hear a lot of things which are stimulating and violating, but it's also very much enmeshed within their lives, within their space. The trauma that they have. There are boys that we have who have experienced their mothers leaving them behind with nobody. We have children who are just growing up with one family one day, living with another family another day. So it definitely kind of impacts their well-being.
Leena, what do they mean by the kids don't have a childhood?
Well, see, you're growing up in a space which doesn't give you the basics what your child needs. They don't even have a point where they sleep, which is their bed. They don't have sleeping timings. They don't have wake-up timings. They're constantly moved, shoved, pushed around to make space for their mother to do her job. And relationships. I mean, a chacha or an uncle could become their father soon. And the father could be somebody whom the mother banishes out, is thrown out. So there's nothing sanctimonious. And that's like the basic threads of what a childhood or a child needs. And they don't receive it. And one other thing which we've really seen in the space is that when they do this play in these therapy sessions, they've actually enacted abortions at that early age of 5 or 6. They've seen things which a normal child doesn't see. So there's really no normal childhood there.
Right. And do they even get an education or go to school?
No, it's only the few lucky ones who get under the wings of an NGO which works there, that they are able to at least have an option of a brighter future.
So while there are NGOs like the one Ishleen and you went to that are trying to give kids in a brothel a better life, what do you think needs to be done on a bigger scale? What do you think that it is you are doing?
So, like what I said when I set out with missing, it's this bigger demand which we want to curb. So it has to be systematic awareness. We also realized that at the same time, there was this really big hub in the remote West Bengal from where 44% of India's trafficking victims were coming out of. And that's the Sundarbans.
The Sundarbans, the largest mangrove forest in the world, right?
Yes, it's known for that, yeah. People know it for the Royal Bengal tiger. They know it for being a heritage site. But there is this whole other side of it which we go to, which people don't see.
Why do you think such a huge number?
Because when I went there, I realized it's so remote. The distance between one house to the other is huge. Like, you could actually end up not meeting anybody for days. And they're very poor. So they're struggling with even getting the food on their plate. And that's make them really intensely vulnerable to traffickers who come in. And traffickers, when they come in, they lure you with love. Traffickers who lure you for money, for work. So sometimes parents do set their girls free in the hands of agents, saying that they're going to give them work in a city.
Not knowing the nature of the work.
Not knowing the nature of the work. And so I've kind of recently stepped into the Sundarbans to kind of create a systematic awareness project there and go into schools, because that's where you catch them young, because children generally do come to school up to a certain age. And Sundarbans is where we work now, which is why I wanted to show Ishleen what's happening there.
Traveling to the Sundarbans made me realize that Leena really wasn't joking when she said that these communities are remote. It took us over 4 hours to cover a distance of just over 100 kilometers, and that's because during the monsoon, the roads get really bad. It's truly a wild terrain and does have some breathtaking views. And spotting a monitor lizard on the road like we did, I mean literally breathtaking. It is actually as thrilling as it is serene. So, it was quite a journey. And we arrived in one of the villages where Leena's doing her work, warning people about the risks of sex trafficking and how it can be stopped.
So we came here to first start doing awareness because missing primarily works on awareness, prevention through awareness. So we did our school awareness program where we go into schools and we are telling people how you can get trafficked, who can traffic you, what can you play as a role as a bystander, and what is trafficking, because I feel it's something which some of the survivors whom I met in my early days, they're saying, I didn't know this happens. People living in this area, young girls might just grow up playing the field and enjoying themselves in school and not even knowing that somebody might lure them into trafficking. So there were a few who said that. So that's why even the government with the new anti-trafficking bill has put awareness as an important space there. So we came here to do a really systematic rural awareness program.
I had gone to fill water and some boy, he snuffed me and made me unconscious and kidnapped me. I was in two places, 2 months in one place and 1 month in one place.
This is Ismat. She grew up in Kultali in the Sundarbans and told me about how she was trafficked.
He would beat me. He would hit me on my head. He abused me. And then one day, I got hold of a client's phone and I called my father. And my father called the team here for rescue.
Now back home, in the safety of her family, Ismat is working with Leena to warn young girls and the wider community on how they can prevent more girls being kidnapped like she was.
It's been a really good journey with her. I first met her when she was still going through her court case because she had actually taken her trafficker to court. The trafficker was from within her community. She was actually a person who actually did embroidery, and one day she had gone to this house to deliver some of her goods. And when she went in, somebody from behind shut the gate and hit her on the head. And 3 days later, when she opened her eyes, she was in Delhi or Ghaziabad, some far off space. And because she was this ferocious woman who fought, for her freedom, they really treated her badly. They broke her legs. They hit her on the head. I mean, she literally can show you her stitches even now. But she was one of the few lucky ones who got rescued in a police raid. So she was able to come back home. And now she's come a long way. We've now made her kind of a community leader in her space. So I'm really happy with how it's going.
Leena finds herself in a tough spot, with a market where numbers of girls trafficked every year are going up and the age going down. She says it's a very sensitive space and her biggest challenge is to get big corporates to get involved and encourage women working in this space. Money being the biggest restraint and society being the second. Do they ever feel that we've failed them?
Oh, constantly. They're actually in this ball of frustration, anger. And because once they've come out, they're thankful. But beyond that, then they really start getting hurt about what happened to them. And the anger sets in. And it's also about how society looks at them. I have another survivor who's come back and now she's fighting for her case. And her mother just shifted to a better house because we supported her. But the people around her house are treating them so bad just because she's been a victim. And then also you hear of stories of girls who go back. There are so many of them who go back into the dark holes because they at least feel that somewhere they can have a life. Because here they'll be constantly abused and become victims again and again. And at the same time, they are still economically very poor. While in this dark space, which after a year or two, when they are given more freedom, they start feeling, oh, at least they can call something theirs. Be it the money they start saving, though it's from stuff which they never imagined that they would embrace. There is this really tough cycle which they have to go through, and not many survive it.
It's quite important to highlight what Leena mentions here. How because of lack of any acceptance by society, women go back to that dark hole.
Because even though you and me are sitting here and talking about it, there are so many others who will say, yeah, and then they'll just flick their heads and probably look at something else or talk about something else because nobody wants to go deeper in this conversation. So it's something which I think it has to become a part of everybody's language, just like how you would talk about saving the world. I mean, there are more little girls getting trafficked today than ever before. So till it doesn't become something very conscious, just like how we all are going green or organic, literally, we all have to talk about how are we responsible of the fact that these girls are becoming victims because of demands, because of our passive acceptance. Nobody expected 7-year-olds to fetch such high prices. And now people raise, oh, really bad. But it's all happening because nobody is doing anything about it and they're letting things happen.
Leena says it's imperative to have a dialogue. It's important to realize what's happening and come to terms with that reality. It needs the involvement of the government, corporates, NGOs, and committed individuals to achieve the overall objective of ensuring a better future for this neglected section of our society. What caught my attention with our conversation with Leena is when she spoke about public apathy. I might feel, how am I responsible for sex trafficking? But even in our attitudes towards sexuality, in our consumption of porn, how we have younger and younger children being sexualized on social media, how we don't talk about sex at home with our parents or even sometimes with our own partners, can all have a butterfly effect on the demand for sex trafficking. And I think that's something we can all take home with us and think about more deeply. From me, Kalki, and all of us, thank you for listening to My Indian Life. And do let us know what you think of this podcast. If you have an interesting story to tell, or you know someone who has inspired you and you think his/her story needs to be told, I would love to hear from you. All you have to do is send an email to myindianlife@bbc.com. Our producer Ishleen has been looking at some of your recent messages.
Hello everyone. Here's what you've been saying on email and social media about our latest episodes. Last week, we spoke to Arushi and Arun about their amazing work cleaning up the environment. Kirti from Germany emailed us to say, I'm a huge fan of your show, and the latest episode, Saving the Planet, has deeply motivated me. I'm learning about climate change and sustainability every day, and I think it's us youth who should bring change in our society. I'm inspired to contribute, and I'm sure many others will do so too. And a couple of weeks ago, we spoke to Ilma Afroz about her amazing journey from growing up in a small village in UP to studying at some of the world's top universities to an international career in Paris and New York, and her decision to give it all up to return to India to become a police officer. Harshit says it's really motivating to listen to My Indian Life, a podcast which inspires us at every moment. Ilma's story was inspirational to listen to. And Param is a fan too. This is so beautiful. It gave me goosebumps. We've had some amazing emails from you about our interview with drag king Bidisha, a singer and performer with a male alter ego, a Persian prince named Badsha. Bindu says, the drag king episode made me super emotional. It was stupid of me to listen to it at work, as it was tough to hold back tears. 3 years ago, I realized that I'm bisexual and that I'm attracted to women. Listening to Bidisha's experiences as a teenager was like looking into a mirror. Thank you for making a show like this, and most importantly, for bringing people from different walks of life to share their life story with the world. Thank you for writing to us, Bindu. And if you're yet to experience these amazing stories, fear not. You can find them all wherever you get your podcasts. So go and download them now. And please keep your emails coming. The address is myindianlife@bbc.com. Or you can share your comments on social media using the hashtag MyIndianLife.
In our next episode,
everyone's been talking of Mars, nobody's been there. So I want to be the first human on Mars.
That's our next episode. The Boy Who Dreamt of Space. My Indian Life is an original podcast from the BBC World Service. I'm Kalki Kikla. Our producers are Ishleen Kaur and Prabjeet Bains. And thank you very much to our editor, Richard Penton Smith.